Good morning to you all who are watching the ABSL Tech Lab first demo day. My name is Paweł Panczy and I represent ABSL and I will be the host of today's event. Let me briefly bring to you the facts why we have gathered here today. The ABSL Tech Lab is the successor of the ABSL Startup Challenge created by the Association of Business Service Leaders. ABSL represents business services, which is the fastest developing sector of Polish economy, employing almost 350,000 people and constantly looking for innovations. The strategic partners of the ABSL Tech Lab are Procter & Gamble, Citi, and Łódź Special Economic Zone. Over the years, as we monitor the dynamics of the sector and the technologies that contribute to its continuous development and consider the situation of the global economy, we have decided to create the ABSL Tech Lab. This concept is the answer to the new challenges and needs signaled both by the international brands and by new technology companies. The ABSL Tech Lab reflects a transition from the formula of a competition to an open, continuous platform designed to connect companies facing business challenges and looking for new solutions and suppliers. Young, dynamically developing technology companies capable of meeting these challenges. ABSL Tech Lab is a platform for establishing cooperation between entities representing these two worlds. Based on the experience gained during the implementation of ABSL Startup Challenge, ABSL wants to foster and increase cooperation between young technology companies and ABSL members representing international companies. ABSL wants to share its knowledge and experience. We will get more information about the program itself during the event, but now, moving on to the agenda, I would like to introduce the representative of ABSL Tech Lab main partner, Kevin Murray, Poland branch head, Citibank Europe.
Thank you, Paweł. Appreciate that. And thank to all of you who are watching and listening in. And thank you for having me here, helping to open the semifinal of the ABSL Tech Lab. This is an event Citi has been a main partner of for the third time. Technology and innovation is very important to Citi. So much so that we have created 3 innovation labs in Dublin, London, and in Tel Aviv, where we look for solutions from the everyday problems to what will drive our future direction. The pandemic has created another reason for us to embrace innovation: work from home. As we all know, even with many people no longer in the office, the show must go on. Clients must be responded to, our people must be paid, new clients, new employees have to join the family. With respect to the latter, we have about 100 employees every month, with recruiting and onboarding happening online. How do we meet the challenges this presents us? This is why an event such as the ABSL Citi Tech Lab is so important. So thanks again to ABSL, Mayor Trzaskowski, fellow guests and organizers, companies from Finland, Ireland, and Poland who will be presenting their ideas, our fellow partners in the ABSL, and also to my team of almost 4,800 people in our Citi Solutions Center in Poland. We have set the stage for our future and it looks very good. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Kevin, for bringing us the business perspective of the ABSL Tech Lab. The current edition of ABSL Tech Lab is definitely more international. Last year, about 20% of applications came from abroad, and this year, it's about 50%. Thanks to the new approach, significantly more experienced companies with a group of customers and a history of implementations came forward. The role of ABSL in building the technological community is recognized by the market. Key stakeholders indicate that ABSL program is on the list of leading Polish startup companies. The last 7 months and the COVID pandemic significantly accelerated the desire of large enterprises to seek new, more intelligent solutions. The perception of technology as an important factor in the development of the organization's culture has increased. It has been a difficult period for all of us, but we have had some significant partners that have supported companies and entrepreneurs that have just started their business journey. One of these partners has been the city of Warsaw. To hear about their approach to the cooperation, we have a special guest, Mayor of Warsaw, Mr. Rafał Trzaskowski. Mr. Mayor, good to have you with us. Please let us know how Warsaw supports young tech companies.
Many businesses all around the world are struggling because of coronavirus pandemic. Obviously, entrepreneurs from Warsaw are no exception. Lockdown and all sorts of limitations set by governments made some of them completely unable to function and were in the risk of bankruptcy. That is why, as the city of Warsaw, we decided to support them during this tough period, and on the March 19th we introduced Warsaw Supports Entrepreneurs Program. There's a package of solutions helping them get through the time of limited activity and being unable to cover all the costs of the businesses, as they suffered huge reductions or even complete lack of income. Our actions focus mainly on reduction of local taxes and payments, such as lease fees up to 90%, or postponing such payments as property tax. We've also delivered advisory and promotional support, acceleration program Warsaw Booster, or free of charge assistance from experts from our Small Enterprise Center. Warsaw Trams also offers a chance of advertising in the vehicles for just 1 zloty for some sorts of activities. We're also strongly involved in distribution of financial support from the so-called anti-crisis shield. To do this as effectively as possible, we have strengthened the Labour Office, additional workers and equipment. More than billion zloty were paid to over 170,000 entrepreneurs from Warsaw who applied for financial help. Warsaw is the city of business. Our city is developing together with the 450,000 companies that work here. The progress is our progress. That is why, in tough times, we need to show solidarity. Warsaw supports entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The program you have described is truly impressive. It's good to know that there are people and there are institutions that think about us in tough times. But we know that it is not the mayor himself that will work on a daily basis with the ones that need the help. So that is why we have with us City of Warsaw representative, Mr. Grzegorz Kaczorowski, who is responsible for providing the support in these difficult times. Mr. Kaczorowski, thank you for being with us today. Could you please tell us what was the most difficult aspect of working with companies based in Warsaw in the last months? Please share with us your experience of COVID and business. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some technical difficulties with getting through to the representative of the city of Warsaw. We will try to get back to him to provide the feedback of city of Warsaw in the difficult times. But now I hope that all the help that the mayor described will support the Warsaw companies to go through these difficult times. And now the next item on our agenda is equally interesting as the discussion with the mayor of Warsaw, or listening to the mayor of Warsaw about his support. But the next guest is extremely interesting. He for many years has worked for one of the dream companies in this world, which is NASA. His job was to make sure that the space missions were safe and that they returned to Earth without problems. After concluding his cooperation in America, he became an expert of European Space Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rupert Mackenzie.
So I'm going to talk about what's more challenging, creating spacecraft that navigates the spacecraft or working under the COVID situation. My name is Rudy Mackenzie. I work for the European Space Agency. I want to say, first of all, thank you for my invitation to speak. I'm happy to share my thoughts with you. I should say that these are my views and not those of ESA that I'll talk about today. I hope that they're interesting to you, coming as they do from a very different industry than you all work for. I expect that by the end of the day, we'll agree that whether you work in space or banking or, in fact, most other industries, we'll share the same challenges and the same opportunities when it comes to the COVID situation. But before I start, I want to talk to you a little bit about myself and my career. So I come from a small island in the northwest of Scotland. This is a picture of it here. I was always interested in space growing up. I went to university and eventually found a job working in the space industry. And I've worked there in the space field for the last 22 years. So in 1998, I went to ESOC. That's the European Spacecraft Operations Center in Darmstadt in Germany. And this is a picture of it here. And when I arrived there, I helped to write software, which is now being used to navigate spacecraft to comets, to Mars, Mercury, Venus, and elsewhere in the solar system. And I also worked as an analyst, helping to control the spacecraft to these faraway places. So this is an image of Mars Express, which is a mission I worked on in the early 2000s. In fact, after many years, this spacecraft is still orbiting Mars, and it's still being controlled at ESOC by the same software that I wrote in the early 2000s. So after 6 years working there, I left ESOC and I went to go to JPL, work in JPL in California. Now this was a dream job for me. I grew up watching Carl Sagan's Cosmos on television, and it was here that he worked in the 1970s and 80s working on the Voyager missions. And when I was at JPL, I was mainly working on the Cassini spacecraft, helping navigate the spacecraft, around the moons of Saturn. Now, this was an extremely important experience for me because I saw firsthand a very different approach taken to achieve the same task and the same goals. Working in the United States, there was important cultural differences and important technical differences in the way that we worked. And in general, it was a more relaxed, open environment than I was used to. Then after 3 years, mainly for family reasons, I came back to Europe. And I came back to work at ESOC within the flight. And for the next few years, I worked as flight dynamics manager of Earth missions, of astronomy missions, which orbit empty points in space known as Lagrange points. And now I'm responsible for development of ESA's next generation software for spacecraft navigation. So at ESOC, we do spacecraft operations. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, what we are, in effect, is a giant remote control device for controlling spacecraft. And we have antennas like this one, which are large radio telescopes, and we have radio telescopes in Argentina, Spain, and Australia, as well as other smaller telescopes elsewhere around the world, which listen into data coming in from the spacecraft. And then we have teams of people, of analysts and engineers working in Germany who analyze the data and formulate plans and responses to determine what to do next. And based on these plans and these computations that are done, we generate commands, and these commands are then transmitted to the spacecraft. We plan all of our activities meticulously in advance as much as possible. So we're extremely careful in what we do. And the main reason is that we want to ensure that the European taxpayers' money isn't squandered on a failed mission. So far, we've not had any mission failures from all our operational activities since we started in the 1960s. So when you see images like this one of a comet up close, you might wonder, wow, the technology and innovation needed to achieve this photograph is amazing. And to some extent, it's absolutely true. It's quite an achievement. But on the other hand, if you think about it, the spacecraft that took this photograph was launched 10 years ago. And the technology that was used to build that spacecraft wasn't at the cutting edge at the time, except maybe in robustness. So the camera that's taking this picture isn't anywhere near as sophisticated as the one even on your smartphone. And at the same time, we might have scientists urging to us, you have to go closer, you have to get better science. I can't see enough from here, I can't see the dust environment close to the comet well enough from here. But from an operations perspective, we've invested a lot to get the spacecraft to that point. We've worked for 10 years on the mission preparation in advance of launch, and then another 10 years controlling the spacecraft to get to this point. So we're not about to take risks which might lose us the mission. So we're risk averse, and we'll continue to be risk averse. It's in the nature of spacecraft operations to be like that. But at ESOC, we, together with industry partners, we also write lots of software to help us control the spacecraft. And the software is used for the mission control systems, which control antennas, which have data systems and simulations for training and much, much more. In particular, I lead a software development team, and we develop flight dynamics software. And this software is used to determine where the spacecraft is, and that's called orbit determination, and how to send it where we want it to go, and that's called trajectory optimization. Now, there's a lot of detail to this. It's quite a complicated process. I'm going to talk a little bit about it in a non-technical way. So, if we want to send a spacecraft, if we want to determine where a spacecraft is, we have to send a signal from a ground antenna. This is a ground antenna on top of Earth here. The signal travels through the atmosphere, through the solar system. It gets received at the spacecraft. It goes through the electronics in the spacecraft. It gets retransmitted by the spacecraft, and then the signal goes back to the solar system, back to the atmosphere, and gets received again at the telescope. So what we measure is the time it takes to transmit and then receive the signal, as well as the frequency shift. And this information is called radiometric measurements. Then what we do is we compare these measurements that we make to a mathematical model. And this is really what the software does. So the software needs to accurately compute the motion of the antenna. So imagine that this antenna is on the Earth as the Earth is rotating on its axis and spinning through the solar system. So we have to measure the position of the antenna as it goes through the solar system to about less than 1 centimeter accuracy. We also have to model the motion of the spacecraft to the same level of accuracy. The spacecraft is affected by the moons and planets and sun and various other forces. So we have to model the motion of all these planets, and we have to model all these forces. We have to model the signal as it propagates through the atmosphere and through space, taking relativistic effects into account. We have to model the motion of all the planets and the sun. We have to also model things like the different time scales that are relevant in the different points. So the time passes differently at the ground station than it will at the spacecraft or at the center of the solar system, for example. And this is just due to relativistic effects. All these things have to be modeled in order to perform the computations accurately enough. So then we determine the spacecraft orbit. And the next step is you need to know where the spacecraft, you need to know how to plan where you want the spacecraft to go. So here, for example, we have a spacecraft which goes around the Earth, and then it makes a maneuver as it goes around the Earth. It fires its thrusters, and then it travels to the moon, and it fires its thrusters in the middle of the orbit to the moon, and then it fires its thrusters again when it gets to the moon to go into orbit around the moon. Now, we have to plan lots of constraints for each motion. So, for example, the maneuvers, we say, okay, the maneuvers, we're not allowed to point the thrusters towards the sun, so they'll overheat. And the maneuver in the middle there, we say, okay, it has to be visible from the ground station. And then we have another constraint which says that we have to fly the spacecraft to a certain point near the moon within a certain accuracy. And we have to do all this using as little fuel as possible. So, as you can imagine, for maneuver optimization and for orbit determination, the software is complex, and it takes a lot of time to write it, and it takes a lot of time to test it and to get it right. And once it works, and you're using it in operations, you begin to trust it. So, as you might imagine, the issue of risk is very much also relevant to software. So, at ESOC, typically we will use old trusted software rather than shiny new software because we know it works. So it takes a lot of effort to convince people that new software is a good idea. But as well as traditionalists, there are also many people who want to improve things, who want to modernize the systems so that we can make future missions better and easier to operate. So the dynamics of the job in that respect are probably the same as in many other fields. You have the forces of conservatism and innovation. So I wonder if any of this sounds familiar to you. So next I want to talk a little bit about what happened when COVID hit. Well, for my software team, we started obviously to work from home. Now, previously at ESOC, this was frowned upon. Teleworking was never really viewed positively within the organization. There was a question essentially of trust between management and staff, and requests for teleworking were often denied. But then suddenly, trust was forced on management, and the outcome was that it was obvious that people still work hard if they work from home. The missions continue to fly successfully. But what about software development, for example? Well, we continue to develop software. Luckily for us, the whole world develops software in this way. The whole world develops software in a distributed way all the time. It's called open source. And we started using some software to help our team communicate in the same way that open source development teams work. ESA didn't have a suitable corporate approved tool, so we had to use an open source alternative. Now, within a month, we were informed that the tools we were using were non-approved tools and they weren't permitted. So then we spoke to a helpful IT guy who is by nature innovative, and he managed to get his bosses to approve the rapid addition of a suitable tool to the IT infrastructure. So this was 6 months ago. And we're still using this tool, even though it was only granted use of this tool under the condition that as soon as the permanent tool was, as soon as we got ESA teams approved for the use of ESA, then this tool would be removed. So our team dynamics was fine. We knew each other well, and we were able to continue working in the same performing modus, whether we're working in the same office together or whether we're working in different buildings throughout the region. So sorry, 1 second. So for us it was easy. But not everybody can work in such a not everybody can work as well in a distributed way. So when we do the actual computations to generate commands for a mission, we have to make sure that they're done in a very careful way. And this means on an isolated, secure computer network. And this is called the operational platform. And it's in the past, it's only been in this operational platform that it's possible to do computations which you can send, you can generate commands from to send to the spacecraft. And traditionally, to get to the operational platform, we have to go on site. And this means we go through the gate that you see in this picture. And we show our badges at the main gate to the security officers. This means we can go in and go to our offices, for example, in this large building here. But we can't work on the operations from there. To work on the operations, we have to go to a special room known as the control room, where the terminals for this secure network are housed. And there we have to show our badge again. And in this special room, we can log in and work on the operational missions. So when COVID hit, all of this had to be changed, and very, very quickly. And then within a short time, we were able to log in from home. So we could be in bed, drinking a cup of coffee, doing spacecraft operations, or doing spacecraft operations while we were having a beer in the evening. Now, back when I worked at JPL in 2005, I was able to do this for a NASA mission. I had a laptop, and I could do spacecraft navigation at home, on holiday, drinking a cup of coffee in a coffee shop, or at a conference. It took ESA 15 years and a global pandemic to be forced to allow this same freedom. And so it proves that this sort of change, although strongly resisted, is possible, and it's even achievable in a very short time without major problems. And of course, there are many other changes. So we travel much, much less for work, and it seems we can get by very, very well without flying to Holland for training courses or for project meetings. Meetings themselves are conducted, in my view, with a lot more etiquette. So within my team, we conduct only voice-only meetings. And personally, I find there's less interrupting, there's less people talking over each other, and there's less what I would call gamesmanship and negative visual stimuli within meetings. The general atmosphere is more professional, and meetings are shorter. And for this and other reasons, I think in general, many colleagues suffer less stress. Another example of COVID change. We work at ESOC and in ESA, and many other people work in a very hierarchical organization. So what I would say, middle managers, sometimes we like to control activities a great deal. And sometimes we like to control innovation as well. So if you want to do something, you might have to go to your line manager, and he might say no, or he might ask his line manager until somebody up the chain finds a reason to say no. Otherwise, you can do the thing you wanted to do. So one effect of COVID is that we work from home. We don't see our colleagues, and they may as well work in another country. And as an international organization, ESA, sometimes our colleagues do work in other countries. So suddenly we're all using tools for communicating, and we can call people in Spain or Holland just as easily as the person who used to occupy the office in the next room. And one consequence of this is that it weakens this hierarchical structure somewhat. So we're more freely connected with each other, and this happens naturally. And so I find myself chatting with colleagues in Madrid and finding common areas in our work. So we make plans, and we start to collaborate. And it doesn't always occur to us to seek our manager's approval for this, because it seems like the same kind of work you would do normally by collaborating with the people in the next office. So many other people seem to be also doing this. In fact, the ESA Director General talked positively about this effect in a recent podcast. So under these new conditions, we can choose to work with like-minded innovators. And in this way, we're breaking artificial boundaries and weakening silos within the organization. And this kind of interaction is great for the forces of innovation. But the trouble, of course, is that in a conservative operations environment, which likes to minimize risk, this is always going to be troubling to some elements in the hierarchy. For example, some managers may not like this. Maybe they'll become anxious because they feel that they can no longer control all the activities in their domain. Maybe some begin to question what their role is. But for a healthy organization, this is normal. As we get new requirements or new challenges, we have to melt our frozen processes. We have to change. And then if the new normal has become too far, we can adjust. And then in the future, we can refreeze and become a strictly conservative organization again. So many of the changes, teleworking, remote operations, and in general, trust in employees will be very difficult for an organization like ESA to discourage or revert back to the old way of working in the future. Other changes, for example, weakened hierarchies may or may not last, and we will have to see how the organization responds and whether managers are ready to embrace this new normal. So it may or may not be that a freer organization is no more than a hiatus in the normally controlled situation at ESA, or perhaps COVID will linger as a kind of institutional memory, helping ESA and other organizations pursue a more innovative future. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.
Dr. Mackenzie, thank you very much for your insightful speech. We do hope that you will be able to join us later on during the panel. But now to present the other guests, I would like to introduce Tomasz Kowalczyk, Growth and Innovation Designer, as well as partner at Rebras Valley. Tomasz will let us know who else will accompany the other panelists and who else will provide us with all the information.
Good day, everybody. My name is Tomasz Kowalczyk. I am a General Managing Partner of Rebras Valley. I will have a privilege to lead today's discussion on lessons learned coming from the last 6 months related to COVID. As for the changes in organizations, is it revolution or evolution? How should we drive this process? Together with me, you will going to listen to Iwona Dudzińska, Managing Director, Head of AML Hub at Citi, Janusz Dziurzyński, Vice President of ABSL, Dr. Ruari Mackenzie, Flight Dynamics Engineer from European Space Agency. We are still waiting for Ruari to join us. Alejandro Paz, Senior IT Director, Global Data and Analytics at Procter & Gamble, Michał Podgórski, Global Head of Securities and Pricing Operations at Citi, and Agnieszka Sigitowicz, Vice President of Łódź Special Economic Zone. Hello. So starting with Iwona. Iwona, after 6 months of COVID, what has changed in our organizations? How companies adopted new policies regarding pandemic conditions?
It's a very simple question, but probably requires a lot to explain what has really changed, because we could simply say that everything has changed in our organizations, or almost everything. Poland is a very attractive place for international investors, and as such is having a lot of companies which are global business companies, providing service to clients across the globe. And therefore, that sector and those companies had a very specific challenge of coping with the new environment and ensuring that we continuously provide service despite of the situation that we found ourselves in. And there are plenty of good examples, including the fact that through ABSL we've been able to have a platform for cooperation and discussion, which was extremely needed and extremely helpful in this specific situation. Citi, as an example, is one of the major financial global institutions that operates in actually around 100 countries and is employing more than 250,000 employees. As such, we've been put in a situation where within a very short period of time, we had to move our operations into almost fully remote. 90% of these 250,000 people were working remotely. This was really focused on ensuring that our employees, who continue to be our key asset, and our clients, for which we want to be the best and continuously provide the best quality of service, are really safe and secure. That was possible because the entire sector, having those global companies, and Citi as such, has really very resilient technology. Poland really was going through a kind of a test as a place for international investor. So we could observe that this is really a great destination because the resiliency of technology, the quality of internet connections, and the fact that we've been able very quickly to organize ourselves in that situation, start working very effectively on the basis of the ABSL, discuss with each other the key challenges, share the best practices, and find solution was absolutely key. I found it very helpful, but I found also very helpful being a part of a global network because the sharing of the best example and practices were going on the Poland level across the sector companies, but also through the global chains. And we've been equipped with the knowledge and experience, being for years used to the fact that on a regular basis we are having the contingency tests, we are operating in the, or we are playing from time to time the scenarios, how we would operate in case of lack of technology, in case of lack of electricity, and all other circumstances. So it was very helpful. I have to say that really the management infrastructure, apart from the technology infrastructure that has been very strong, was very helpful. Because the management infrastructure and cooperation between managers helped to continue our other processes which are absolutely key to run the financial operations. And for example, during this time, we've been continuing our recruitment processes. We've actually recruited around 800 people for the last, half of the year, and we've been able to onboard them remotely, train them, put them through all the important processes to allow them to be a part of the family and continue delivering operations to our clients. This is also very important from the leadership and the managerial perspective to ensure that people are really working together and that they are engaged and continue all the actions and initiatives which are important from the culture perspective of the organization. And that culture perspective, I really mean ability to connect, ability to talk, ability to continue the social activities, even though they've all been working remotely. And this has been really maintained. We are very keen on diversity and inclusion. We continued through the pandemic situation, our affinity network operations. We've been offering to our people some of the solutions that were really absolutely necessary for them from the perspective of managing the stressful situation, and without that, it probably would be very difficult for them to deal or to find themselves in the new environment.
Thank you very much, Ivona. Agnieszka Sigitowicz from Łódź Special Economic Zone. Your organization has been working with international and domestic investors for years. You are very active in this area. But apart from this, Łódź Special Economic Zone is very much involved in the startup and technology market in Poland. What's your opinion on the current situation? Do you believe that as for large organizations like banks or other significant market players, is it more about new tools being implemented that help these organizations, or education and soft skills that allow them to adjust to new situation?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I didn't have a chance to say hello to all. Thank you for your invitation. Coming to the question, well, I think that it's the best recipe for the success concerning the situation that we are in our organization, no matter whether it's a startup, small company, big international organization, or any other kind of company. The best thing that may us lead to success during the difficult times is the mix of the new solutions that we all have to introduce because we've been forced, we have chosen to do this, or just or the situation forced us to do this, and of course the skills, and education and the teamwork of our company. So we've been watching what the business and our investors, how they are thinking during COVID, as well as we are trying to support them thanks to the new technologies in our startup. So starting from our company, we switched to new methods, new tools of working, and that's how we also help our investors. We run a new platform called Strefa Wsparcia, which helps to deal with the new challenges that we all have to face. And we are sharing best practices now among our ecosystem of special economic zone. That's the one thing. Of course, if we do have any particular questions or problems or difficulties from our investors, we're also trying to sort them out. Thanks to education, thanks to best practices, and of course technology. What we have done, we also run the special round for startups, helping to face challenges that COVID put us in front of, especially, of course, the health issues and the security issues that we tried to look for new solutions. But not only this, also some organizational challenges that also touched our investors pretty much. And we found 10 new projects and new technological and organizational solutions that we are putting on the market now. And of course, it's not only for business, but also for hospitals, for medical care. But I strongly believe that technology is our ally in this new COVID situation, as well as, of course, soft skills, education, and building a team. It's totally difficult, totally new situation in team building now, because we have a home office for most of the time. Many companies are still on home office and will stay homes, don't know how long. So we have new way of team building. And but I know even from our organization few success stories. So if we mix all of this, the new way of management, technologies, and sharing best practice, I think that we can find each other the business effectively most in this new situation.
Another question to Janusz Dziużyński. From the ecosystem perspective, as a vice president of ABSL, Agnieszka has mentioned the proper mixture of technology and soft skills that is so efficient, especially in these COVID difficult times. What's your opinion on this adjustment process? Do you think that who was more efficient, which pool of people within organizations who are more efficient in this adjustment process? Was it about employees or managers or both, probably?
Still good morning, a beautiful good morning. Pleasure to see you and hear your voices. Good, Tomek. To be honest, as today I represent ABSL, so all these numerous centers of shared services and BPOs and God knows what else. Wonderful sector in Poland. It's not a big secret. Everybody witnessed that. It's been astonishing how easy it was for the sector to adjust. But I would timestamp this answer. Initially, we were really positively surprised and impressed how companies and especially employees in the sector, in the centers, adjusted to this new reality. By definition, we work online. By definition, many of our interactions are remote. And the beginning of the pandemic showed how effectively, even without thinking about this, how big of an advantage this gives to our operations. So initially, everybody had a little bit of a hurrahism to say how smooth it is. However, and I mentioned I'm going to timestamp my answer, over the course of time, we see more and more worrying signals. Those are the signals of disconnect, of lack of engagement, and it's most visibly seen and perceived in a way how silent people tend to be on the call unless they are called to talk and discuss something. In fact, you don't know what they do behind the scenes, especially if the camera can be switched off for whatever reason. The typical reason is a poor range or poor coverage of internet, which is everybody instantly understands because everybody experienced the same even today in this conference. So then you start to think what happens behind the scenes. So that's one thing. I think is we as ABSL members get more and more signals that the how to say this nicely, the composition of the perception ability to contribute in a normal quote unquote way is getting more and more difficult for extended time working away from people, working away from offices, working away from the colleagues from the work, and working away from the clients. So these signals are more and more worrying. So at the beginning, from the hooray optimism and very fast, very good adoption, right now we see more and more worrying signals. This is where managers come into play. So initially for managers, like for everybody, including myself, it was a little bit of a shock. And then we see, hey, it's moving on, it actually works, that's great. But now I think we are entering a critical moment in which these managers, these people, need to completely differently step up the responsibility and taking leadership role into how guide the people, how to engage them, how to make sure that they continue to be stimulated in order to contribute their best. So I think I'm convinced, and I see many examples of this, that this is a very important period of time for managers that we are entering in.
Thank you very much, Janusz. Alejandro Paz, from P&G perspective, first of all, do you agree with Janusz that the hard times for managers or challenging times for managers is about to come right now? And the other question is, should we ask 12 months ago any manager in Poland if he or she would be happy that their employees will work remotely for 90% of their time? Probably they would be a bit unsatisfied, saying that we are not ready for this. And now we live in a totally different world from the corporate and organizational perspective. So what are your lessons learned from past months and your pieces of advice for managers, managerial teams regarding this adjustment process?
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. Hope you're hearing me well. So first, on the first question related to if I agree with Janusz, it's a very interesting question, as Janusz and I love to disagree on many things. But in this particular question, I would say yes. I certainly agree with Janusz that there has been kind of a process where there was initially a lot of digital learning, fluency, etc. A lot of excitement, a lot of surprise that we were able to handle. And since then, it has got significantly more stable. And now some concerns start coming that I very much relate with what Janusz was sharing. I think if I look at the last 6 months, 12 months, and second question, Tomek, on what are the lessons learned, okay? I think I see 2 or 3 things, right? One is trust has become super important. Okay, and I would even say empathy. Okay, the whole work-life effect, the ecosystem of life and work, with all the remote work, has got extremely close. We tend to have now much more discussions about what is the situation at home. Are your children in the school or remote? Do you have a nanny or not? Are your parents at risk or not? Do you need to go on holidays or not, right? A lot of discussions that not always, and in particular because of GDPR, we're always very careful, tend to start happening. And there's this empathy that we need to start relating very much. Trust, as I said, is super important as well. I think trusting the employee and trusting the mechanisms that a particular company will have on human resources matter becomes super important. And we need to try to avoid the 200 people in every meeting that now is much easier to do because of the digital connection. Basically trust that everybody is doing the best. And of course, increase the connection one-on-one. I certainly have tripled probably my one-on-one since the last 6 months in order to be as connected as possible with the organization. A third point is digital fluency. I compare this to when I was growing up, English was a pretty big deal. So basically what many parents were telling their children is, if you don't learn English, you're not going to be able to be a strong professional in the future. There was a lot of investment on English. English is today, as well as other languages, not anymore an advantage that you have as a professional. Is actually a disadvantage if you don't speak it. And of course, I have a very funny accent in English, and I'm being told, so we can talk about that one as well, right? But digital fluency and technology has become now that. The manager of today needs to be very strong on digital fluency, being able to connect the different collaboration tools that have been able to connect with new hires and people who are more junior in the company, who operate in a different way and collaborate in a different way. And the managers who are not able to adapt to that are going to have a very difficult job, right? So that's what I would, to summarize the three learnings that I see. One is trust, another one is empathy, and the third one is digital fluency.
Alejandro, I would like to stay with you with this topic because, as we all know, corporations hate uncertainty, so that they always would like to know how to use their assets. And employees and the potential of employees is one of the most important assets of any company in the world. 1 year ago, when I was discussing with corporate clients from Poland, tools that are available in the market and that can help them run their organizations, they asked me about, Tom, there is a growing number of people willing to work remotely. What are the tools for us to control them, to control their engagement? Maybe we can use cameras and so on. You mentioned trust. Do you believe that right now managers are more prone to accept and trust their employees on the real efficiency of their work? During the keynote, actually, Ruari mentioned that in ESA, being a conservative organization in terms of risk, they had to switch from these very strict rules into more flexible ones. And what's your opinion on this aspect? So the trust between managers and frontline employees.
Well, for me, that's an easy answer to, like an easy question to answer. The answer is there's no option. It is impossible to control the current situation, the times where your expectation to an employee that they are going to be ticking the clock and you can completely control it is basically the past. Maybe what were still some parts of it around got completely killed by COVID, right? I think the watch out is, or an observation or a learning, it is somehow ironic, but it's easier to organizations that have been very strict into, for example, working from the office with this transformation to move completely work from home, that organizations that were significantly more blended on this. Because at the beginning, it was very easy for these organizations to switch, but there might be a situation where we're missing the big future on what is coming on the new normal, because the transformation hasn't been that big. And I'm not talking about P&G specifically, I'm talking about many companies have been significantly more flexible in the future and how we operate on that switch. So that's a big learning on how we want to operate all together and being able to empower the employee of the future. And trust is, in my opinion, just at the center of all of this.
Thank you very much. Ruari Mackenzie, thank you very much for the amazing keynote presenting both the technical aspect of your work as well as your experience regarding COVID situation. You have been listening to our fellow panelists mentioning their lessons learned and their experience towards COVID. Would you like to share with us your experience and the most effective tool that allowed you actually to trust the employees, both in terms of developing your managerial skills as well as tools being available in the market, how to combine, how to marry these two worlds, the human part of operations and projects with technical part?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I work in the space industry, and I think maybe it's different, maybe not, but maybe it's different from many other disciplines in the sense that we have a lot of very dedicated, enthusiastic employees who will, given the chance, work more than the required hours. So when it comes to, let's say, trust and, let's say, discipline, the problem I've found is not that people won't be disciplined enough to do the work that we expect them to do, but actually we have to discipline them to not do too much work. And if they're at home, often the problem is that they'll work too much into the evening, or they'll spend the weekend working, and so on. And so really the issue, rather than being about trusting people to work, it's more about trusting people to work and take a decent balance between work and other parts of their life, especially when they're working from home, and especially in the early part when it was a real lockdown. I think it's less of a problem now. So I think if anything, this, let's say, reducing the amount of work time, I think there's a lot to be said for, let's say, the fact that I work mainly in software. Now, the whole world, as I said in the keynote, the whole world works in a distributed way as far as development of software is concerned. We have lots of tools to understand exactly what everybody's doing on an almost hour-by-hour basis during the software development. We work on centralized servers, we can see what they're committing to the repository and so on. So we're fully aware of what everybody's doing, and just as much as if we were working in the office. So from my personal experience, let's say, being aware of what people are doing and engaging with what people are doing is really not a problem at all. One of the other issues which I think is interesting is in terms of, let's say, teleworking. Before COVID hit, within our organization, teleworking was, let's say, discouraged. So there was many examples of people who asked to do one day teleworking a week and weren't able to do so because a manager said, well, no, really, because if one person starts to telework, then everybody's going to want to telework, and then where will we be? I think that what's happened now, of course, and what will happen in the future is that we've already people working within the organization have demonstrated that they can be trusted. because we've worked very well over the last 6 months. And it's going to be very difficult for managers in the future to try and, let's say, get back to any old normal and try and, with the kind of arguments that we've made before, that really you're better off working from the office, really you're better off coming in, because for many people it's not the case.
So actually caring about the employees and making them work less in this new condition, in these new conditions, is extremely important right now. What's your perspective on this? Because corporations are usually linked with the idea of people in corporations work as much as possible and spend as much time as possible at work. And right now, this shift is quite visible and significant. So as for managers, do you believe that this new kind of discipline, preventing employees from working too much, is getting more and more important? I believe we have some standstill with Janusz. Okay. I believe Janusz will join us in a moment. So the same question to Michał. So from your perspective, first of all, thank you for being here today with us. Do you believe that companies like Citi should care more right now and should be more responsible about employees and how much time employees spend at work doing projects?
Thank you, Tomek, and good morning to everyone. I absolutely agree. It is an important factor, and is with any corporation, and Citi included, and many others, there's always been a focus around what's called work-life balance, or what I actually like to prefer to call work-life harmony. There's never a 50-50 balance in this space, but a harmony is what you always strive for. And over the years, we've worked very hard on achieving that harmony and giving employees flexibility, whether it is working from home occasionally or taking opportunities to shift their schedules in ways that can work for them and their personal life. We find now that that is becoming ever more important. Everyone is working from home. The line between home and work is extremely blurred, and we have to take extra care right now to make sure that employees are not burning out, that they have some division of personal life and work life, that they are taking time off, even if that means that they're not necessarily traveling. All of these steps are important. It's important also for managers to connect more with employees than it was before. I think Alejandro mentioned that he has more one-on-ones nowadays. I think that's an important factor. We have to take more time to connect with our employees on a more personal level and understand what's going on in their lives and what their work-life situation is at the moment, and help them and maybe even push them a bit to take better care of it. We all, because of the fact that we are sitting at home, tend to work a little bit more, because what else are you going to do? And that is a real concern when it comes to burnout. So it's an absolutely important factor that people and managers and companies are taking this into consideration.
Thank you very much, Michał. Agnieszka, from your perspective and perspective of companies that operate in the special economic zone, Michał mentioned this caring about people that is growing. Its importance is growing. What are the other positive, surprising success stories of the COVID-related organizational shifts and evolution that you have spotted? Give us some success story.
Well, from my perspective, it's not a very difficult question, because we work with all kinds of business, and of course, there is plenty of business branches that grows on these pandemic times, because they, for example, produce self-care materials or any other things. And we also observe such stories, many Polish and international companies who turn their production, the industrial companies, into the, well, I would say, challenge, answering the challenges that COVID put us in front of, the most obvious self-care materials, but also other things like machines, robots, and so on. And they are growing really, really fast. And well, we were surprised as a special economic zone that in the first 6 months this year, we had like 1 billion of input. I mean, the capital that was invested in the zone. So, for example, in the same period last year, we've been like 600 million. So it's like growth, right? So not everyone are in difficult position. We also observe such situation, and these companies we are trying to help and support them in a way that they need it. But many companies are growing, and some because they are well, they have something that answers the need of market, the new market, I would say, on technological or people's care or security areas. But also we do have these success stories, I would say, the companies that are indifferent of the pandemic times, like producer of tiles, for example. Well, this is the business that is not growing because of COVID, but it's also not falling. We have constant growth, no problems, no huge issues, except of course facing new situation concerning abuse. But we discussed this topic much today, so I will not say it again. I mean, everything what my fellow panelists said, those problems we are also facing, and our companies are also facing. But the success stories are two main points. I think the companies that are developing on the new market, technological companies, of course, because they can easily pivot and they can easily answer the special needs, and the companies that are that the stable strategy of growth and they care about people and they diversify their production of the business.
I would like to use this moment in order to switch to Iwona, because as Agnieszka mentioned, there are not all the companies that are facing problems and challenges. There are some growth opportunities, and growth opportunities require new skills because the market is new, there are new features. So what is for you as the well-seasoned high-level manager, the new managerial virtue that has emerged in 2020 that has become important for the market and for a corporation like Citi?
Poland, which is a leader in building the new processes and being a leader for the global services centers, is really has really recognized the need of leadership trainings, leadership development, even before the pandemic. So when I look at the sector and being in the sector, I have observed a lot of focus on managerial and leadership skills among the companies that are using ABSL as a platform and working in this sector. Specifically, I represent Citi, where remote work, which happened to be a new function for the manager, remote leadership to teams which are dispersed, has become critically important. And I think that going forward, that remote leadership will continue to be important. For Citi, the different work arrangements, including flexibility and remote work, has been existing for many, many years. So basically, depending on the area, on the geography, there have been up to 20% of employees who've been working remotely. And actually, it was a case of the City Solutions Center in Poland. So it was not new. The situation that we found ourselves in for the last few months proved that embedding leadership skills and making sure that our leaders are able to connect with people and work with them remotely will be continuously one of the main purposes for the organization.
But Ivona, should I be willing to apply to join City as a manager? What would be one word in my CV that should appear in order to bring your attention right now, based on the experience coming from the last 6 months?
I would expect ability to build engagement, and it always will remain the top skills for the managers and for the leaders. The difference is that we are now in a slightly different situation, and maybe City or other global organizations are better positioned because they used to offer flexible work arrangements and because it was an advantage to the employees in the past. But now it is becoming even more important because that engagement needs to be built in the completely different space, a virtual space, almost virtual space. So basically an organization that is operating in 100 countries, that is connecting with different geographies, different culture, needs to have leaders who are able to do that. And Poland, you know, is embedding processes where actually managers who work and live in Poland are managing processes across the globe. And of course, other countries have similar situation. So basically, that remote work pattern already exists. But now, if you have majority of your people working remotely, the way of communicating with them, as has been already explained by my colleagues from the panel, is absolutely critical. So one-to-one communication and very regular meetings. Making sure that people are not overworked, because this is a signal. Everybody works more. Everybody, I mean, starting from top managers, ending or starting up with the employees, and you know, everybody is working very heavily, and actually the work-life balance or work-life harmony, I like that terminology that Mike was using, is something that should be a focus for all managers. Also, people are really very exposed to stress because they are having isolation for quite a long time already. So, for example, there is the source of stress may be the fact that I am working with kids and family in a small flat. And this is something that creates additional burden and stress on me. But I may have a different situation. Poland has an increasing number, or used to have increased number of international employees coming to Poland and working, young people, for whom the social element of life and work was absolutely important. And they also have an issue. So things like providing them platform. City has, for example, employees assistant program, or we are working with Share the Care Foundation in order to help people to manage the stress and fund themselves in those difficult situations.
Thank you. We have one last minute, and I would like to use it for you to mention one feature of the modern organization that will help it to be successful in this COVID time and post-COVID time. But please do not repeat the feature of that was already mentioned by other panelists. Let's start with Michał.
Oh, great. I get to go first. I would say collaboration.
Agnieszka.
Oh, I gotta get one word.
One word.
Collaboration.
Agnieszka.
Flexibility.
Alejandro.
Growth mindset.
Ruari. One word.
Innovation.
And last but not least, Janusz.
A sense of humor.
Oh, that was great. Thank you very much for the valuable insight, for your inspirations to our attendees and our audience. So, ladies and gentlemen, Iwona Dudzińska from Citi, Janusz Dziurzyński, ABSL, Ruari Mackenzie, European Space Agency, Alejandro Paz from PNG, Michał Podgórski from Citi, and Agnieszka Sigitowicz from Łódź Special Economic Zone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tomasz and the panelists, thank you for sharing with us your views on how the current situation and marriage of technology and people can enhance both global corporations and young tech companies with the tools, but also with the solutions. It was interesting to hear those single words that you find as key to proceed in this difficult situation. And now we will move on to the most exciting part of this event, which is a demo session of selected young tech companies. With great pleasure, I introduce the head of jury, Iwona Dudzińska, Managing Director, Head of EMEA IML Hub. Iwona, please let us know who will support you in the task of selecting the winners of today's program.
Thank you, Paweł. I have a great pleasure to lead the jury that we have formulated specifically for the Tech Lab of ABSL. And I would like to welcome on the jury Alejandro Paz, the IT Director, Global Data and Analytics, Procter & Gamble, and Mike Podgórski, Global Head of Securities and Pricing Operations, Citi. I would like to introduce you to the most important, as Paweł mentioned, part of our meeting today, which is decision on the best startup that we are going to announce as a result of today's meeting. ABSL has been very much keen on technology, and it was an important part of its activities over the last years. Also, Citi is a very technology-driven company, servicing clients across the globe and servicing different clients, consumers, and institutional groups. We really are very keen on cooperating with startups to ensure that there is a continuous inflow of innovation to the organization and to our products, to our services that we then provide to our clients. So we've been very much privileged and honored to have this lead role in the startup cooperation. For the last 3 years, we've met actually around 200 startups, or almost 200 startups, being or cooperating with ABSL. This year specifically, we had 17 different meetings with 17 startups. We spent 7 hours of discussion to come to the conclusions on what would be the most business-oriented proposals, solutions, and challenges that we would like to promote by cooperation or collaborations with the startup. We also formulated a kind of the Citi Tech Lab, and we've had managers from our organization working very closely with the startups, helping them to come up with the solutions that are the most desired solution from the business perspective. And now I would like to thank everybody who has made this event possible to happen, including the people from different functions in Citi organization, and of course our startups. And I would like to move smoothly to the startups and to come to the first startup, which is Random Forest. And the Random Forest is a startup that will talk about themselves, and they have focused on the advanced text analytics that we considered as one of the areas of the greatest need from the business perspective. Here you go, please.
Okay, so we have 10 seconds to invite you to our presentation. During this time, our AI models interpret context, extract data, and manage hundreds of data.
Are you playing our presentation?
We are now going to look at your presentation.
Decision makers, researchers, and analysts love data. But in some organizations, the level of unstructured data could exceed 80%. It takes a lot of time to find crucial information. And even worse, it becomes impossible to have control and protect the unknown data. Processing large amounts of text materials manually is extremely inefficient and time-consuming, as an average person can read 200 words per minute. And what's more, work effectiveness decreases during the day, and so does its quality. And we all know that mistakes can be costly. So, is it possible to use AI to speed up this process and increase search accuracy?
Yes, it is. But the ready-to-use software is not customized to process companies' unique names, abbreviations, and terminology. We, at Random Forest, help large enterprises extract, manage, and analyze data from unstructured text materials. Thanks to artificial intelligence and our innovative original methods of analyzing English and even extremely difficult Polish content, we revolutionize old-fashioned search tools. We built dedicated software to automate context understanding and find the right parts of the text, such as names, values, descriptions, features, etc. What's more, our AI models are able to find similarities between current and archival textual data automatically. It helps discover recurring topics and allows categorization of new documents.
The solution not only analyzes textual data, but also supports users in formulating conclusions and making recommendations. AI models are ready to fill in templates and compose new documents based on existing ones to speed up repetitive editorial work. Our software is independent from third parties. It could be deployed as software as a service or on clients' premises, and we even have our own OCR to protect your data.
Of course, we need to build training sets to develop the customized solution, but the AI models are trained exclusively for your company and won't be used anywhere else. It allows to build an internal knowledge base and maintain know-how within the organization. We cooperated with Office of Competition and Consumer Protection, legal firms, and large enterprises in developing intelligent systems for managing and analyzing text documents. In our most recent project developed for Grupa Azoty, we created an innovative, private, searchable knowledge base with automated extraction of crucial data from R&D reports.
And lastly, we are proud that last month we were nominated to accelerate our products and develop sophisticated natural language processing models in the project co-funded by the European Union. And those will be implemented into our future products.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got a question to my colleagues from the jury. Do you have anything that you would like our startup to answer?
Natural language processing obviously are very hot topics. What do you feel sets you apart from the competition?
Create documents mail in English. What we have done, we built our own language corps. So it means we are ready to analyze documents not only in English but in very specific languages like Polish, for instance. What's more, we are ready to create solutions that could be installed at client premises, as well as we are ready to create software as a service. So it depends on some internal rules of our business partners. Moreover, we have developed our own OCR. It really helps to manage the document because we are now independent of the third parties. So everything what we do and everything what we deliver to our business partners is operating inside the company, and nobody has access to this data. So the first step is security, data security, and later on all the machine learning knowledge as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Random Forest. I would like to move now to the next startup that have ended up in our last competition, which is SMARP. And SMARP is about communication. We already said communication is a key because it creates the engagement within our workforce. I would like now SMARP to introduce and to show us the presentation. Okay.
First of all, I understand it's a tough job communicating with your employees effectively. And at SMARP, we really see this being down to 3 core reasons. The first reason is the complexity of enterprise organizations. And it's difficult because you have a number of different regions, which compromises a number of different teams, business units, who all have different interests and speak different languages. The second reason is the evolution of employee communications. So 40 years ago, it was post, then email, but today we have a number of channels that we can communicate to our staff through. And it's become difficult as a communicator to be able to reach our employees. And from an employee's perspective, it's become really noisy. But that's not the most important reason. The most important reason is that your employees have changed. And the employee that you had 5 years ago isn't the same employee that you have in the office today. And all of this hasn't even taken into consideration the current pandemic, which with remote working now means your employees are much harder to reach than ever. And typically, businesses are using traditional methods like email, newsletter, and intranet. For the employee, it's very generic. It's very siloed. Conversations are hidden and it's very noisy. And for a communicator, it's become really hard to measure. And typically with intranet and email, the segmentation is very static. So what we're seeing from employees is that they want information to find them. It's relevant and personalized through the channel of their choice, which means they'll be more informed and engaged and better aligned to company goals. When you have all these things, you really start to get to a state where we have a relationship between the organization and their employees. This strong two-way relationship that provides business metrics that organizations really care about. They become more profitable as a business, employees don't want to leave, and you can really start to attract the best talent in your market. And what we're currently seeing is that there's a gap in the market for a specific tool for internal communication that solves the problem around operational and organizational communication. And what we're hearing from our customers, who are very similar complex outfits, the likes of KPMG, Spar Nord, Rabobank, is that they were having challenges to fully engage their remote workers. They find it hard to make good communicators of their middle management, and they don't have the deep dive analytics on how they're engaging within the business to influence decision making. So at SMARP, we are a mobile-first employee communication platform that allows you to reach and engage your entire workforce, whether they're office-based or remote. We're a 4-in-1 platform that allows you to aggregate all of your content from internal and external sources. We allow you to create content natively within our platform via our publishing studio. You can distribute that information to your employees' preferred location. That's a mobile employee app, a desktop experience, a tailored newsletter, or a personalized intranet feed. And finally, we can help you amplify your external content directly from the platform via employee advocacy. All this is wrapped together with our AI-powered analytics platform that helps enterprise communicators make data-driven decisions. Thanks ever so much for your time, and if there's any questions, I look forward to hearing and answering them.
Thank you so much. Questions?
What we asked the previous startup. This is a very crowded space. What is your differentiation versus the others, especially that, for example, Microsoft Teams and Microsoft is very involved on doing very similar capabilities?
Certainly. Thanks for your question. So Microsoft Teams, the likes of Slack, they all very much focus on team collaboration. So where Smart focuses is really around the operational and organizational communication. So when you're looking at communicating to bigger teams or the whole organization, this is where Smart enables you to get engaging content in the hands of every employee. So that's the key differentiation here, is the likes of Zoom and Teams are all about one-to-one communication. We're more about giving and sharing news to your whole organization or to wider teams.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Smart. And I would like to move to our next startup, which is TakeTask. And this is a very important initiative on the onboarding and training. We've already said that especially in the pandemic time, it became a crucial subject to address. Here we go. TakeTask, and please present yourself and show us your presentation.
The founder and CEO of TakeTask. I would like to introduce you to our system. Please take a look at the film and I will be happy to answer all the questions later. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sebastian, the founder and the CEO of TakeTask.
Hello, I'm Natalia, customer success team member. Efficient onboarding is a challenge in many organizations. Before new employees start working, they should be formally prepared, understand the mission of the company, and be familiar with rules, hazards, facilities, and geography of the new workplace.
During onboarding, employees often feel left alone with manuals and reports, and sometimes feel that their questions disturb coworkers when there is a work overload. This is a growing problem, especially in the post-COVID social distance world.
This is where TakeTask comes with a solution. We can make onboarding more engaging and fun for employees.
And on the other hand, the company builds a positive image about potential candidates and people already hired from the very first day.
TakeTask mobile application is used to assign, execute, and verify tasks on a large scale. This can be in different forms: tests, training materials, or even exploring tasks in the form of a basic urban game in the office.
Tasks are created and enhanced by administrator in a simple and flexible graphical task editor, and then assigned to different groups. Employees can be grouped into cohorts, department, office building, thus making their experience more individualized and personalized.
The system is implemented in a private Azure cloud in order to guarantee high personal data security.
Moreover, the application is branded with company standards. The implementation of the system is fast and does not require big engagement of the internal IT department.
TakeTask is a technology company with an experienced team. Our system is used for a variety of use cases. Our clients are mostly big corporations like Rossmann, Biedronka, Shell, Auchan, and CCC.
The best proof of our flexibility, security, and speed was the implementation in just 2 days of the COVID quarantine monitoring application for the Polish government, based fully on TakeTask system, with over 600,000 user accounts up to date. We are looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, TakeTask. And I am again referring to my colleagues from the jury for questions.
So I guess I'll take a stab at this one. Your You're definitely playing in a zone that is very different and extremely challenging. How do you meet the various needs of enterprises that can be very varying? And aside from considerations like GDPR, restrictions in corporations can be extreme for regulatory reasons, cross-border reasons, so on and so forth. How do you take account of these things and still deliver a personalized experience to the end user?
So I would divide it into two questions. First of all, the GDPR and data security question, it's quite easy to solve. We deploy our system for each client as a separate Azure cloud. So the data is protected by not only the system, but also firewalls from Azure, and it's separate from all the other companies that also have Take-Task solution. It's also a white label solution. Regarding the flexibility of the tool, we have a task generator where you can use our drag and drop task editor to build any process and distribute it to different groups of people in different locations at different time. You can trigger one task by another, and everything is done by regular administrators of the system. You do not need any IT specialist to code something in the application. So this is the base of the system, and I think it follows the challenge that you are posting for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take-Task, and I would like to go to our last startup that we have picked up. This is the fourth one out of the 17, and that's HireUp, which is streamlining and automating referrals process. Again, one of the key processes specifically in current situation. So HireUp, the voice is yours, and welcome as well your presentation.
Good morning to you all. My name is Gary Burney. I'm Head of Engagement at HireUp.
And I'm Dave Maloney. I'm the co-founder of HireUp. And HireUp is a solution which provides a platform for internal talent mobility, employee referrals, and alumni network management in an automated, effortless, and customizable way for talent acquisition teams and employees as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and we're looking forward to taking your questions in a couple of minutes as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Camila. I'm part of the HireUp team, and I'm here today to briefly chat to one of our co-founders, David Maloney. David, how are you today?
I'm good, Camila. Thanks very much. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. But let's jump straight into our chat so the audience can learn more about the market challenges and HireUp itself. Firstly, what areas of talent does HireUp focus on, David?
HireUp focuses on 3 areas of talent acquisition, which are employee referrals, internal talent mobility, and alumni network management. The whole idea here for companies is to make them effortless, automated, and customizable. We also include a communication center powered by artificial intelligence in our product to blend the best of recruitment marketing and talent acquisition to incentivize employees effortlessly.
Mm-hmm. And what challenges does the market face in referrals and internal mobility?
So the challenge here is interesting because the benefits of employee referrals and internal talent mobility are both fantastic in terms of quicker onboarding, a cheaper alternative for recruitment, and the ability for these candidates to often be more successful within the company. But the challenge is to make these programs accessible so employees actually want to take part in them. Often they're a very manual process. It's difficult for employees to engage with. So the key challenge for companies is getting the benefits of these programs whilst making the programs themselves easy to run and maintain.
Hi.
For referrals programs and for the employees who are working from home, who are working remotely, it provides you with a way to centralize communication direct to their mobile phone, making them feel closer to the company at a time where they can't physically be there. And for referrals specifically, it's a great way to source candidates as your employees are able to endorse these candidates. And for the candidates, they're having a friendly face introduce them into the company at a time where they can't physically be there.
Thanks, David. Thankfully, there's a big focus nowadays on diversity. Can HireUp through referrals and internal mobility help with that?
It can. So HireUp can promote diversity and inclusion within companies in interesting ways. When we focus on referrals first, you can promote through your communication center built into HireUp a more diverse and inclusive type of referral coming from your employees, making them think harder about the network they can reach into in providing a better source of diverse candidates, having a better reach into those networks as well effortlessly. And from an internal mobility perspective, what it means is you're breaking down the existing barriers of prejudice which may exist within an organization by putting the power of managing their careers back in the hands of the employees by making it open, making it transparent, making it more democratic. And through our analytics and through our tracking within the product as well, you can begin to track your diversity and inclusion within your internal workforce, and through the communication center begin to promote further diversity and inclusion programs within the products. You're always tracking and improving your diversity as time goes on, and HireUp gives you the power to do that seamlessly.
David, thank you so much for this and for your time today. I'm sure even in this brief time, the audience has picked up some great insights into the market and HireUp itself. Thank you for listening.
That's great. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, but maybe jury has a question.
Okay, I'll go again. So you actually touched on a very interesting point around diversity, and I assume that requires maintaining certain data points. How do you ensure security and privacy protection?
Good question. So ties heavily into GDPR. So the whole idea with HireUp is whether you're looking at referrals or internal talent mobility, that it's a GDPR compliant process from end to end. What that means is that employees opting into the process the same as candidates willingly taking part in the program. Now, in terms of storing that data, we're storing our data on AWS in a certain secure way and following all the data regulations that are on as well. So one thing that I'd say to companies is when you're taking on HireUp, you're ensuring these programs being run in a GDPR compliant manner as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank everybody for the presentations, and I would like to thank my colleagues from the jury for being with us here. I would like to emphasize my congratulations to those startups that have ended up being the fourth mentioned here. And congratulations for the ideas that you brought into the table, because it looks like those ideas were picked up as the most desired ones for the businesses that we do represent at the business centers sector. I guess that now it's a time for us to have some deeper discussion between ourselves, and therefore we would need a few minutes to have the opportunity to ask some questions to our startups and have a short discussion between the jury members outside of this stage. So let's go.
Thank you, Yvonne, and the jury members. Thank you for interesting interactions with the companies selected in the ABSL Tech Lab program to present to us today. And now the jury members will discuss among themselves who was the most attractive and who surprised them the most with their presentations. But this gives us some time to talk to the 4 companies and ask them a few additional questions on top of what they told us already. So once again, Smart, TakeTask, HireUp, and Random Forest. Thank you very much for presenting your, and now will be a kind of challenging thing. Thank you for presenting your tools. But we know that the tools are operated by the people. So there are a couple of questions that may be approaching your solutions with the request to explain how you want to motivate the users of those tools to use them not only properly, but also successfully. We have heard a couple of interesting and important aspects that AI will support the text and data conversion into better communication. We heard that diversity and democracy can be transferred with the tool that is given to the hands of the people. We heard that onboarding will support better understanding of what your position is, but will it support the transition of the DNA of the company to those that will not even touch the ground of the company? So now, if you allow me, I would like to, even for my own interest, but I do hope also for the interest of the viewers and the listeners, to ask you a couple of questions. Yes, we will start with HireUp and diversity and democracy. These are very important aspects, but the information that you provided to us sounded rather dry, that it will support diversity, it will make people think, but how should I make sure that, yes, democracy may be aside because it is important, but let's say diversity. Will you use numbers or will you use specific solutions of your tool to make sure that in the referrals program there is diversity supported?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we talk specifically about employer referrals, for example, there's multiple ways to handle, I suppose, diversity and inclusion within that process. And one intelligent way to do that is when it comes to capturing candidate data, making that somewhat anonymized, where you're not categorizing people necessarily by gender, not necessarily, labeling them under ethnic categories. The more anonymous the data can come through from the candidate's perspective, the more impartial the review of that candidate will be. And, like I said, being able to promote a more diverse type of referral coming from your employee base as well through the communication within the product. So that's one way when we're looking specifically at referrals. And then with internal mobility, there's alternative ways as well to promote that kind of diversity and inclusion within the company.
Thank you very much. This is a very important topic, especially nowadays in Poland, where we struggle with making sure that the diversity is supported not only by the companies that we work in and work for, but also by the surrounding partners and stakeholders. So we do hope that your tool will enhance us with more information how to transfer this value to the outside world. Now, if we are talking about Random Forest, you went into a situation where it looks like Google Translator has already done the job. We drop the stuff into the translator and we get the translation, then we just have to polish it. You're using AI for that. Where would you say this is enabling, let's say, the human side of communication, not just the data, not just the pure information, but how to use the AI in order to transfer or translate the intention of the author of the text, the meta language that is sometimes called?
This is a very tough question because some voice models we develop is our secret. But we're working on some solutions to discover some emotions, to extract some metaphors and to interpret them. So, of course, we can translate like Google does any text, but what's super important, we have our own codes, language codes, that it allows us to build something deeper, so to extract some meaning that's behind only the text.
Just as a matter of curiosity, is your team also supported by psychologists or people that are dealing with the meta meaning of the language, not just the data and pure information? Because some of the other competitors that were mentioned in the question of Mike use that. Do you?
Yes, we do. We cooperate very strongly with psychologists, sociologists, and even neurologists, because it's super important to as I said, it's super important to understand the deeper meaning. So everything what we do as programmers and as developers, we use machine learning, we use deep learning, etc. But very often, or almost every time, in the first phase of the project, we need to build some training sets, and in this phase, we need to and we want to and we cooperate very strongly with people who are much better than we are in that linguistic.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the information. It is important because sometimes you get, the text that makes you laugh instead of make you think. Maybe one of the last questions, because I think the jury will be ready in a few minutes. Take task onboarding, one of the most important aspects of the initial transfer of the DNA of the company. How using, or is it possible using your tool to transfer that specific DNA that also carries the EVP, employee value proposition? Do you think your tool is able to do that as well? Not just compare the skills and abilities of the person that is applying for a job?
Hello, I just joined the call and I couldn't hear the question. If there was a question.
Once again, is your tool able to transfer the specific DNA of a company that also carries the EVP, employee value proposition? Because that's one of the most important aspects of why we choose the employer.
Sure, of course. Because as I said before, it's a completely flexible tool where you can not only structure the path that the employee will follow, but also all the texts, all the interactions you want him to join or to take part in. So you are the ones who design it without the help of any IT people. And you can change it anyway, so you can do any A/B testing, and as part of this, you can choose the best ways. You can have different cohorts of employees. You can divide it by different departments and have different paths or different elements of the onboarding process to different employees.
Yes, thank you very much.
It's very flexible and very personalized.
You just described the tool. The question was more about the mental approach to how to use the tool. But I guess a set of psychologists and people with the mental abilities to describe the DNA of the company would be helpful in this process as well.
Yeah, you can just mirror this. We provide a tool which enables to mirror different approaches within the company and different philosophies. So it really depends on what is your philosophy, what is your plan, how to build this kind of onboarding process, and
okay.
you can build it in our tool.
Thank you very much. Ilona, jury members, I think this is the time to go into the announcement, so please do not take us any longer in the expectations. Please let us know the results of the jury deliberation.
Okay, so the jury has taken the decision, and I must say that it was not an easy decision. As I have expressed previously, there was a long and difficult work to be done first by the people involved in the entire project. Then out of the 17 startups, we've picked up just 4. Those 4 have really presented great ideas, and it was a pleasure to listen to the initiatives and to the challenges that they have come with. Those challenges are really desired by the businesses. And I must say that I was really very much happy to hear the great quality of the presentations. So I would like to congratulate all the startups, the 4 that have been just presented to us on behalf of the jury members, including myself, for the quality of the presentations and the quality of the solutions. However, as the competitions outlines, there is only one winner. And we already have that one winner, and I have a great pleasure to announce that winner. And I want to announce that the winner of ABSL Tech Lab is Random Forest.
Congratulations, Random Forest.
Congratulations, Random Forest.
Thank you very much for being with us. Guys, tuned to tell us anything? How does it feel?
We are very happy and very proud. Everything that we do for people. There's artificial intelligence, but everything that we do for users, it means for people. So we are very happy that we are here and we have already won.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ivona, would you be able to tell us what was that specific thing about Random Forest that helped you to make the decision? Because that's probably important for all of us to understand how the business thinks.
Okay, so of course, we are always looking for the most innovative solution. And I have to say that every participant of this competition was very innovative. Nowadays, there is another factor which also is important. So applicability of that solution in the pandemic situation and how much it would support and help the companies to resolve their business challenges in this environment. But also very important was how easy and quickly we can apply the solution into the businesses. And we just found that Random Forest solution is probably the easiest to be applied in the shortest possible time. And the last but not least is the applicability for all the businesses. So basically it doesn't matter whether you are in the sector, in the production services, in the consulting services, research and development, or financial services, you still can apply that solution everywhere. And even if you are not in the sector, but outside of the sector doing another type of job, you still can apply it. So universality, innovation, and easy, and how easy the solution is to be applied across the businesses.
Thank you very much. It looks like simplicity won in this competition. So thank you very much, guys. Congratulations once again. And once again, the startup being qualified right now will take part in the finale of ABSL Tech Lab on December 3rd. I just wonder who of the viewers watching the presentations pointed out to the same winner. Guys, maybe you should play the lotto. But please join us once again for the second round of online demo sessions on October 14th at the Procter & Gamble office in Warsaw. And to all other participants of the event, guys, you are also winners because you were exposed to the business decision makers that may take the advantage of the solutions that you have provided. Once again, I also would like to thank the official partners of the program, Procter & Gamble, Citi, and which special economic zone. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the ABSL Tech Lab City Demo Day. My name is Paweł Panczy, and I had the pleasure to be the host of the event, together with Iwona Dudzińska from Citi, who was the head of the jury. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us, and see you all on October 14th and December the 3rd. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much.